unlike Julia Margaret Cameron, most of the other photographers we remember or that stand out in the 19th century, we remember for their technical innovations more than their artistic ones. Edward Muybridge is a good example of this kind of photographer. His work, which was to settle a bet or an argument that Leland Stanford, the founder of Stanford University, had with a friend, that all four of a horse's feet come off the ground at the same time when they run, is more important for its technical developments. This piece can be cut into separate images and assembled like a flipbook, and demonstrates an idea called persistence of vision. And persistence of vision is important because it's the underlying principles of cinema, or moving pictures. The basic ideas of persistence of vision, again, had been familiar to us for a very long time. Even the ancient Greeks knew that you could put a series of drawings together and basically make something like a flipbook, make something that appeared to move. But Muybridge proved that it's possible to take a series of photographs and do the same thing. And this really paves the way for our modern cinema. Muybridge himself takes each of these photographs on a different camera. At the time, cameras couldn't take a series of photographs like this. And he sets up, in fact, 14 different cameras, although there's only 12 pictures in this particular set, all on tripwire. So as the horse moves by, it triggers the camera and takes a picture. Other photographers contribute in other ways. So one of the famous claims about the American Civil War is this was the first Civil War in which photography really plays an important part. And probably one of the best remembered Civil War photographers is Timothy O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan had served as a soldier, and after he was discharged from the army, he comes back and records the events of the war with his camera, taking many of the famous photographs of the war that you may have seen before. And this kind of photograph, before photographs of later wars like World War II or the Vietnam War, really bring home the realities of war to an American viewing public. However, O'Sullivan and his assistants were not above changing an image, and in fact in this particular image we know that they moved the positions of bodies to achieve the composition that they wanted. So even though these photographers, and O'Sullivan in particular, would have probably claimed he was something like a journalist or a recorder of events, not an artist, we can see that there are artistic choices or artistic influences being made. Other photographers also use their photography in order to achieve a goal or a mission, in order to spread information. So this is one of a set of photographs by the photographer Lewis Hine. Most of these images today are in the Library of Congress, and Hine becomes very famous for these series of photographs of child laborers or child workers, mostly in factories in the first decade of the 20th century. Hine himself was not originally trained as a photographer. He's actually trained as a sociologist, and he felt very strongly about the issue of child labor, that children should not have jobs, that they should in fact be in school. And Hine was able to take these photographs back to Washington with him and use the sympathy generated by these images of poor children dressed in poor clothing. If we look at the girl here, Addie Card, she doesn't have any shoes on. She's in a dress that's clearly far too big for her, that's dirty and patched. And in doing research on this image, Card herself claimed to be 12 years old when she talked to Hine, but the research suggested she may have been even younger, possibly as young as 9 or 10. And this is just one of many photographs that Hine took over the course of his career. So like O'Sullivan, these photographs would be used to show a situation more clearly and more acutely, and to create a greater connection with the subject. Here again we see Hine making artistic choices. The subject, Addie Card, is framed against the textile machine behind her. So this brings home the fact that she isn't just any poor little girl, she's a poor little girl with a job. And like O'Sullivan, Heine would have thought of himself as somebody with a goal or with a mission, not as an artist. Despite that, these 19th century photographers really pushed the boundaries of what and where photography could take place, and the ways in which we could use photography. And this really paves the way for photographers in the 20th century to start pushing the boundaries of their photography right into galleries and museums. And we do start to see photographers considered as fine artists just within 10 years of this particular photograph being taken.